right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right, so today we're diving into a case. And you guys, this one is wild.
It is a doozy.
It really is. So this one was filed in the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York. And it's one of those that I saw the name and I was like, oh, we have to talk about this.
Yeah, how can you not?
You can't. You just can't. So the case name is Richard v. Combs.
Woo.
Yeah, and I know what you're thinking already.
I am.
Sean Combs is a named defendant.
As in P. Diddy?
Yes, as in Puff Daddy P. Diddy.
Wow, okay.
So, I mean, that alone, we're already off to a great start, right? But wait, it gets better.
Okay, I'm listening.
So there's not just one defendant. There are over 30 defendants.
30.
Over 30. It's insane. So we're talking individuals, production companies, record labels, and even a beverage company.
A beverage company, what?
Yes, a beverage company.
Okay, this is getting interesting.
All right. It's a lot to untangle. So let's take a step back for a second and just kind of, start from the beginning.
Okay.
So our plaintiff is Dawn Angelique Richard. And now at this point, we don't know all the details of her claims. The court documents that we have are a little vague on that so far.
Okay, so some mystery there.
Yeah, a little bit of a mystery. But what we do know is that multiple defendants are already trying to get this case dismissed, like right out of the gate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we're talking UMGR Remote Productions, Inc., New Remote Productions, Inc., and Harve Pierre.
So they're saying, like, see y'all later, don't want to be a part of this.
Exactly. They want out. And they've actually filed what are called pre-motion letters.
Pre-motion letters. Now, I've heard that term before. Can you remind me what exactly is a pre-motion letter?
Yeah. So basically, it's a letter that's sent to the court before a formal motion is filed.
Okay.
And it basically outlines the arguments that the party is going to make in their motion. So in this case, these defendants are saying, hey, we think this case should be dismissed, and here's why.
Got it. So it's kind of like a heads up to the court and the other side.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting.
So these pre-motion letters have been filed, and the plaintiff has responded to them. And now we're waiting for responses from some of the other defendants.
Huh?
Now, Sean Combs, he's actually requested an extension for his response.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's got a little more time.
Okay.
But here's where it gets even more interesting.
More interesting. I didn't think that was possible.
I know, right? Well, the judge has decided to adjourn the pre-motion conferences until all of the defendants have responded to the complaint.
Okay, why is that?
Well, the judge is actually anticipating that the plaintiff might file an amended complaint.
So the plaintiff might change or add to their claims.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. So the judge is saying, hold on, let's wait and see what the full picture is before we start making any decisions.
Exactly. And to be honest, that makes a lot of sense because with so many defendants and the possibility of these claims changing, it's really the most efficient way to handle it.
I can see that.
Yeah. And so the judge has adjourned these pre-motion conferences, what's called sine die.
Sine die? What does that mean?
Yeah, it's a fancy legal term, but basically it just means indefinitely.
So not necessarily canceled, just postponed.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to get a sense of this now. So to recap, we have this lawsuit by Dawn Angelique Richard against a whole bunch of defendants, including Sean Combs. We don't know the exact details of the lawsuit yet, but we know that some of the defendants are trying to get out of it early, and the judge has decided to hit pause on everything until everyone has responded to the complaint.
Exactly. That's a perfect summary.
This is going to be good.
I know, right? We're just getting started.
Can't wait to see what happens next.
Me too.
It is a mystery, right? A legal thriller.
Yeah, total cliffhanger. So we've got record labels, we got production companies, we got Sean Combs himself. I mean, what could this lawsuit be about?
Well, like you said, we don't know the specifics yet, but we can kind of look at who's involved and make some educated guesses.
Okay, so let's speculate a little bit. What are some of the things that tend to cause legal drama in the music industry?
Oh, there's so many possibilities. But I'd say one of the most common is disputes over money, especially royalties.
Royalties, yeah.
Yeah, those splits can get really messy.
Yeah, so you're saying Dawn Richard could be claiming that she's not getting her fair share of the profits from her music.
Exactly, and with so many defendants involved, it could be that her music was used in a lot of different ways, like in TV shows or commercials or maybe even sampled by other artists. And she's alleging that she wasn't properly compensated for any of that.
Okay, that makes sense. And I mean, we know that the music industry is notorious for contracts that are really complicated and sometimes even unfair to artists.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. These artists they're often young when they sign these deals.
Yeah.
And they might not fully understand all the legal jargon.
Yeah, and they're just so excited to get their music out there that they might sign anything.
Exactly, and that can come back to bite them later on.
Big time.
Yeah, so it's possible that Dawn Richard is challenging the terms of one of her contracts. Maybe she's saying that it was invalid or that it was breached.
Okay, so we got royalties, we got contracts. What else could be going on here?
Well, another big issue in the music industry is intellectual property rights. Copyrights, trademarks, that sort of thing.
Right, so who owns the rights to the music, who can use it, who profits from it?
Exactly, and that can get really complicated, especially when you have multiple parties involved, like in this case.
Yeah, so maybe Dawn Richard is claiming that someone is infringing on her copyrights or that she's not getting the credit she deserves for her work.
Exactly, or maybe she's alleging that someone is using her name or likeness without her permission, for merchandise or something like that.
Wow. I mean, any one of these things could be a huge legal battle on its own.
Oh, absolutely, and we're talking about all of them potentially wrapped up in this one lawsuit.
Plus, remember, we have that amended complaint looming in the background.
Oh, right, that's right. She could add even more claims or shift her strategy completely.
I know, it's like trying to hit a moving target.
Exactly. It's going to be interesting to see how the defendants respond to that.
Well, what's interesting to me is that, putting aside all the legal maneuvering for a second, this case really highlights some of the bigger issues in the music industry.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, you have Dawn Richard, who's a talented artist, and she's going up against some of the biggest names in the business.
You're right. It's a David and Goliath situation.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder what kind of experience led her to file this lawsuit. What kind of roadblocks or injustices did she face?
It's a good question, and I think it speaks to the power dynamics in the music industry. Artists often have to fight really hard to get their voices heard and to get what they deserve.
Yeah, I mean, we tend to focus on the glamorous side of the music world, the awards shows, the hit songs, but we don't always see the struggles that artists go through behind the scenes.
Exactly, and this case is a reminder that there's a whole other side to the music industry, a side that's full of contracts and negotiations and legal battles.
It's like a whole different world, and this lawsuit is giving us a glimpse into that world.
Exactly. And I think it's important to remember that these legal battles, they have real consequences for artists.
Yeah.
They can impact their careers, their finances, their creative freedom.
Yeah, it's not just about winning or losing in court, it's about their livelihood.
Exactly.
So, okay, let's say for a moment that these defendants who are trying to get dismissed, they're not successful, and the case moves forward.
Okay.
What happens then?
Well, then things start to get really interesting because the case moves into what's called discovery.
Discovery?
Yeah, it's basically the investigation phase of the lawsuit. Both sides get to gather evidence, interview witnesses, and really build their case.
So they're like detectives trying to piece together what happened.
Exactly. And with a case this complex, with so many defendants involved, discovery can be a long and expensive process.
I bet.
Yeah, think about it. You have to track down documents. You have to schedule interviews. You have to coordinate with all these different parties. It's a logistical nightmare.
Yeah. And on top of all that, you still have that potential amended complaint hanging over everything.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's true. So the whole landscape of the case could shift at any moment.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
the judge is going to have their hands full trying to manage all of this.
No kidding. I wouldn't want to be in their shoes.
So let me just recap here for a second just to make sure I'm following everything. We've got Dawn Richard, our plaintiff, with a story that's still unfolding. We've got Sean Combs and a whole bunch of other music industry heavy hitters, some of whom are trying to bow out early. And we've got a judge who's basically trying to keep this whole crazy train on the tracks.
That's a perfect summary. You've got it.
All right, good, because my head is spinning a little bit.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is, but it's also incredibly fascinating. For someone who's not a lawyer, who's just listening to this case unfold, what do you think is the biggest takeaway for them?
Well, I think it shows just how complicated the music industry really is. We see the glitz and glamour, but behind the scenes, there's all this legal stuff going on. Contracts, negotiations, lawsuits.
Yeah, it's like a whole hidden world.
Exactly. And I think this case gives us a glimpse into that world.
And it reminds us that even in the digital age, with streaming and all that, the legal side of music is still incredibly important.
Absolutely.
I mean, these issues, they affect everyone, from the artists to the record labels to the fans.
That's right.
So it's definitely something worth paying attention to.
Agreed.
Yeah. It's wild to think about all the stuff that happens behind the scenes before we even get to hear a song.
Yeah, it's a whole other world. And in this case, it's like we're peeking behind the curtain.
Exactly. And you know, it also makes me think about just how important it is for artists to understand the legal side of the music industry.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, knowledge is power, right?
Yeah, if you know your rights, you can protect yourself and make sure you're getting what you deserve.
Exactly. And this case could actually have some pretty big implications for the industry as a whole.
Oh, in what way?
Well, depending on how it's decided, it could set some new precedents for how contracts are negotiated or how intellectual property rights are enforced.
Oh, wow. So this case, it could potentially change the game for everyone.
It could. Yeah, it's definitely one to watch.
That's for sure. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, but I feel like we're just scratching the surface.
Oh, yeah, this is just the beginning of the story.
Exactly. And unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there for now.
Ah, I know. But that's the nature of these deep dives, right?
We always end up with more questions than answers.
That's true, but that's what makes it so interesting.
Exactly. So for our listeners out there who are now just as hooked on this case as we are, what what should they be thinking about? What questions should they be asking themselves?
Well, I think the biggest one is, what will that amended complaint reveal?
Yeah.
What new details will Dawn Richard bring to light?
Yeah. I mean, will she double down on her existing claims or will she go in a completely different direction?
Exactly, and how will the defendants respond to that?
Yeah.
Will they change their strategies? Will more of them try to get out of the case?
And the million-dollar question is, what are those initial claims, and what could possibly be so big that it's brought all these major players to the legal table?
Right. What's the story behind this lawsuit?
It's a real cliffhanger, and it makes you realize that the music industry, it's not all about fame and fortune. There's a lot of drama, a lot of conflict.
Absolutely. There's a whole other side to the music world, and this case is a perfect example of that.
It really is. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap things up for today, but the conversation doesn't have to end here.
No way, we want to hear from you guys.
Yeah, head over to our website or our social media channels and let us know what you think of this case so far. What are your predictions?
We love hearing your thoughts.
And of course, we'll be back with more updates on Richard v. Combs as this legal drama continues to unfold. So until next time, keep diving deep.
Keep diving.